Welcome everyone. Welcome back to another virtual farm tour. And of course, we're going to start out with feeding Hershey. I'll try and give you a little bit of a different angle so you can actually see how he's nursing and what he's doing with his nose and his tongue to be able to get the milk out at a really efficient rate. So you can see that nipple on the bottle is really flat. He's putting a lot of suction on it and able to draw the milk into his mouth and drink it really quickly. So it's the same way that they would be nursing on a cow. But this way we can get a little bit closer. And we have Lizzie who's going to come and check things out. The calves foam a lot at the mouth, so the dog likes to come up and help clean him up a little bit, so she gets a bit of a treat. And he's getting really good at nursing. He used to take his time and was a bit of a slowpoke at times. But now it doesn't take him very long at all. And he's getting right down to the end. So as you can see on his face, his eyes are positioned pretty much at the side of his head. So cattle are able to see just about 360 degrees. So all the way around. So that gives them excellent vision. They are a prey animal, so they do have to be looking out for predators. And so that 360 degree vision is very effective for that. So he's going to push on me. He's going to bash me because he's wanting some more milk. But that's all he's going to get for now. Yeah. They have incredibly soft noses, especially when they're calves. They get a bit more rough as they get older. But right now, he has a very soft little nose. Everything is still developing, still hardening. His hooves are still a little bit soft if you were to touch the underneath part of them. When they're in the womb of the cow, everything is really nice and soft because you wouldn't want to have really hard hooves as they currently are inside. So everything comes out very, very soft. And now you can hear him stepping on the floor, so you can hear that kind of clip-clop, same as you would with horses. Their hooves are made out of the same type of material, and that same type of material is also what our fingernails are made of. So he's done for the moment. We're going to hopefully get him out, and he'll follow me really well. Come on, Hershey. Just like dogs, they do get to know their name. So every time we say Hershey, he should react to that a little bit, or he won't mind staying in the pump house. And he's just content to stay there, so we're going to give him a bit of a helping hand. Come on. Out. So from here we're going to take a bit of a different turn, and we're going to go check on our sheep, which I've said we're going to do a few times before, but the calves have always been a little bit closer and much cuter. But we'll go take a look at the sheep right now. So Hershey will come with us most likely. He'll follow for a bit and then he'll get tired and won't bother coming with us anymore. It's getting really mucky out, a lot of mud, a lot of water. It was nice today, so everything's been melting. Rubber boot season. So he's going to slowly come along with us, and we'll see how long that lasts for. So here's another view of our yard, one that we haven't really seen much of. So we have bins all the way at the back, and those are what we use to store grain in. We have wheat, barley, peas, and flax in a few of them. And then over here, this is a bit of a container, if you will, that's made out of big round bales. And it's not full right now, but every second day or so, my brothers will come with the tractors and they will chop up hay bales, and they'll get pushed into here, and this is what we'll use to feed our cattle with. So there's not very much in here, but it gets mixed with some hay and some straw, and then later on some silage is added to that. So these are what the bales look like. Instead of using twine, it's this mesh, and this mesh can actually be recycled. So we take all the mesh off, we don't grind it in with the feed. It comes off, and then we all put it in a pile, and then it gets taken to be recycled so it can make more mesh. This is one of the tractors that we use. It's a New Holland. And then this red thing behind it is called a bale processor. So it has a bunch of different teeth on the inside, and it grinds up the bale. And right on this side, this is the chute. So that's where all the grain or all the hay blows out of. We also use it to chop up straw, so when we're bedding our cattle, this machine will also be used for that. So all these puddles aren't really great for any of the cattle or the sheep, the cats, the dog, the people. The geese really love it, and it might be difficult for anyone to see, but look to the end of the screen and you'll be able to see all the geese are having a fantastic time bathing in the water. They've gone how many months without seeing large puddles? So this for them is very exciting. So they take full advantage of the fact that everything is melting and the whole yard is essentially a pond. One of the other animals that isn't really a fan of all the puddles are some of the cats. So this is one of our kittens. Not quite sure what to do with all this water now. I'm a little bit cranky about it. Just going to walk through and grab a pail so we can go give the sheep some grain. This is another one of our pieces of machinery. This is a case loader. So we use it for numerous things, for grouping up bales in the summer and the fall, to loading them on the trailers, to scooping up all the silage, cleaning out pens. It's a multi-use machine and gets used for a number of things around the farm. So there, we might be able to see the geese a bit more. The geese and the ducks, this is really their prime weather. Lots of water, nice and warm. They're enjoying it. So we're gonna grab a pail. Poor cat. So this kitten usually has been in the shop, and he's going to hop on my lap because when we used to have the calves, the bottle calves, including Hershey, in the shop, and we'd feed them, he'd hop on, whoever was doing the feeding, he'd hop on their lap and get a little bit of milk. So that's probably what he's hoping for now, but We're doing the bottle feeding in a different place, so the cats kind of miss out on that. And this cat, even though I know the sheep and the calves are maybe a little bit nicer than the cats, but this big black and white cat, he's mine, and he's the oldest animal we have here on the farm. He's 17 years old, and he's looking a little rough. He's looking a little, he's getting some white hairs in his fur, but lovely cat. And they're all wanting some attention. When they want attention, they want food. But we'll leave the cats for now. This big orange truck is what we use for hauling bales. So it has a big trailer on it, a big wide trailer. And so we can fit lots of bales on the back here. So it's just pieces of wood on the side, and they get grouped in one field and brought home, and then they get taken off the trailer and put in their places here. So we have a number of different bale yards that we have that we move bales to and fro. And now I'm going to get some grain for the sheep. As long as this one has grain in it, we'll be good. So it just pours out. I'm turning a crank right back here, and then I can grab it and don't even have to worry about it. Yeah. So the sheep are going to get some barley, so that's what I just poured in this pail. And we have our sheep over in a little bit of a more out of the way spot. We want to keep our ewes away from where the ram is. So the ram is over in with the horse, and the ewes, which are the female sheep, are out here. Our ewes will be lambing in May, so we try and wait for nicer weather, a bit more green grass, and temperatures that are above 0 for the lambs, because they are pretty tiny when they're born. They're about 5 to 7 pounds. So there's a lot of difference between calves being born in March that weigh 80 to 120 pounds to little lambs that weigh 5 to 7. So these are some of our, these are all of our sheep minus the ram. We do have some wethers in here. So wethers are castrated males, and ewes are females, adult females. As you can see, they have a lot of wool, and their wool is constantly growing. And a sheep, on average, will produce about 20 pounds of wool a year. It'll all depend on the breed. And with domestic sheep, the wool has to be shorn off at least once a year. And we'll do their shearing in the spring right before they start to lamb, because otherwise the lambs have all that wool that they have to try and get through. And that can be a really big task for a tiny little lamb. And just like people, and just like getting a haircut, shearing their wool doesn't hurt them at all. And it helps them regulate their temperature, especially in the summer, because otherwise wearing all that wool gets pretty warm. So they're very agile creatures. They like to jump up on things. We have a rock pile in this pen, so they're always climbing on there. It also helps them to wear down their hooves, which, just like their wool, is constantly growing. If I can get close to them, sheep have a split in their lips, so that means they're able to get really close to the base of whatever they're grazing on. So if they're eating a lot of grass or a lot of vegetation, they can get right down to the base of those leaves or those blades of grass and pick out the best ones and nibble right down to the base. Sheep are also ruminants, so that means that they have 4 stomachs, just like cattle. And rather than 4 stomachs, I would say, they have 4 chambers in one stomach. So that helps them break down all of the food that they eat. And like cattle, they'll spend a lot of their time or a lot of their day chewing their cud and lying down so they can properly digest that food as it moves through all 4 compartments in their stomach. Sheep have a bit of a different look to their eyes in comparison to cattle. So you can see they kind of have a fisheye in sense, or something that could be comparable to marbles or a cat eye. So they really enjoy their barley. And in addition to their lip that has that split in it, they also use their tongue to gather up their food. And they're not shy about getting into one another's faces and getting the best bits. We'll go over and take a look at the chickens in just a minute. We'll give the sheep a couple more seconds. So these 2 sheep that I have in front of me, these are both females. So females are called ewes, which is spelled E-W-E. And then the males, the breeding males are called rams. The castrated males are called wethers. So just like the weather out today, but it's spelled differently. And then any of the babies that are born, those are called lambs. And when ewes are having their lambs, it's called lambing. So when they're born, you'll have ewe lambs, and then you'll have little ram lambs. And very similar to what we do with our cattle is we give our sheep different colored tags so we're able to identify them. So for the most part, these ewes out here will have, some of them will have pink tags. And so those will identify the females. But the yellow tags will also identify the females. So it just depended on what color tag we had extra of. But then the males, like this one, will always have blue tags. And because sheep have so much wool and a lot going on around where we'd be able to tell whether they're a male or a female, using tag identification is a very easy way for us to know if it's a male or a female. So the sheep get a bit of a special feeders. It's pretty much identical to a cattle feeder, and right now we're just getting them to clean up a bit of the hay, and later tonight we'll give them a fresh bale. So it's pretty much the exact same style feeder for cattle, but the bars are closer together to accommodate the smaller body that a sheep has compared to cows or bulls. And then it's shorter in terms of height because they're not able to reach over like a cow would. Reg, you can tell Caden that we're going to go see the chickens. We'll walk over to the hens and the rest of the geese and the ducks, and we'll have our cat follow us. Come on. So just like the calf got only a certain amount of milk, the sheep get only a certain amount of grain. For them, it's like candy. It's a real treat. So they can overdo it in terms of the amount they're going to eat. So we limit that. All their other feed is by free choice. So any of the hay, they can eat as much of it as they'd like. And then when they're out in the summer, they can eat however much grass and leaves as they want to. But because grain is a bit more of an unnatural feed in terms of, in the wild, if they were to find grains, they would only find so many pieces at a time. But here we have it all controlled, and we're able to give them a bit more than they normally would. So you have to make sure you don't give them too much or they can get sick. Just like overfeeding on the milk. So these two big long pieces of equipment are called augers. So the grain will go through these augers. It gets moved up by this spiral. So the spiral moves all the way up the auger, and then there's a spout at the end. So the grain gets moved up in that process or in that way, and that's how it gets put into the bins. And you can auger your grain both into your bin and out of your bin. And we're back to where all the geese and the roosters are. So I have the geese and roosters outside. They're a bit more adventurous when it comes to tackling the snow and the ice, where the hens are quite fine to stay inside and not go out until everything warms up and all the snow has melted. So here's some more of the geese. They all stick together, and at this time of year they're very protective since the females are and the males are going into their breeding season. So even with humans, they can be quite pushy, and you don't really want to get backed into a corner by them, especially with a female that's sitting on a nest. But as long as you give them their space, they won't cause too much of a problem. And for people that are around all the time, they get really comfortable and really used to you. Anyone who's a bit new or unfamiliar, they're able to sense that, they're able to smell that, and won't be as friendly. So here are the chickens. It's a bit dark in here, but you can probably see them really well. So that big one with the big red piece on his head is a rooster, and that's called a comb. And this right here is my one and only turkey that I have so far. And you can see right now he's puffing all his feathers out. All the skin on his head is turning a bright red or a bright blue color. And the feathers on a turkey, on a tom turkey, which is a male turkey, and then the feathers on roosters, so the male chickens, are what are called iridescent. So they have that green, purple, blue that you can see just a little bit on the screen. Only the males have that, and that's for attracting the females or showing off to the females. The female's feathers are far more plain in terms of the quality. So we have one hen that's sitting on eggs in here. So they hunker down in their box, and I'll go and grab an egg from her, and she's going to really not like that I'm in there, just like a cow will show that she's protective of her calf. The chickens are the same way, they just show that a little bit differently. So she'll go and she'll peck your hand. And we let the cats in here. And the chickens are very comfortable with a lot of the other animals. We even have one cat in here who just, whoops, cat's all over the place now. One cat who sits in here and she waits, so she'll watch for any mice that come along. So it's great to have the cats feel comfortable in here with the chickens, and then the chickens feel comfortable with the cats. It's a good relationship. So she'll sit in here and make sure that if any mice come around, she'll nab them. And not all the cats will come inside the hen house, just a few of them. So the structure that the hens are sitting on right now, that's called their roost. So chickens don't sleep on the ground like cattle or sheep. They like to perch on something, because they're also a prey animal and they're a little bit smaller. They like to be elevated when they're asleep and at their most vulnerable. So they really like sitting on a roost, and this one's just made of some pieces of 2x4s. So I'm going to bring down our bucket of eggs. So there are many different colors, many different sizes. So right here we have some of the pink ones, some of the nice olive ones, and then this is a goose egg. So pretty much the size of my hand. A goose egg is approximately 4 chicken eggs, or the volume of 4 chicken eggs. And then we also have a duck egg. So a duck egg is roughly the equivalent of 2 chicken eggs. So right now, because the hens are going outside in their little back run, the eggs do get a little bit dirty, they get muddy. And especially the duck and goose eggs, they get incredibly dirty since they're all out in the mud and water all the time. So take them back, wash them. And then the duck eggs, I'm actually keeping as many as they're laying, and I'm going to be putting those in our incubator at our house. So hopefully we can hatch out some ducklings in about 28 to 30 days. If I wanted to hatch out some goose eggs, that takes a little bit longer. It takes just about 35 days for one of the goose eggs to develop fully and then hatch out. But I'll let the geese hatch any eggs out themselves. They'll start to lay more eggs, and they'll put them lay them in one spot. And once they decide that they kind of have enough eggs that'll work for their clutch, which is between 5 and 10, they'll decide to sit on those eggs and they'll start to incubate them for their necessary period of days. And it'll all depend as well on the breed. Certain breeds take more days, some days take fewer. So now we've got a chicken house that's full of cats and a dog. So it's important that all the animals get along really well together, since come summer, everything is going to be outside and roaming around together. These are some of the roosters that are out here that are in with the ducks and geese. So they stay separate from the hens, since all these males would get quite aggressive with the females and want to breed them all, since it is springtime and that's their natural breeding season. So what I will do to make sure that things don't get too hectic in here is match certain breeds together. So if I want some more colorful eggs, I'll match some of the blue laying breeds with some of the brown laying breeds, and then you'll get a really nice olive color. Or if I want to have some purebreds, I'll pair the same breeds together. So I have one hen of this white breed, so I'd match her with either this white rooster or that white rooster. They're both of the same breed. And then oftentimes it's nice to just have a mix. So then you get a really colorful flock of chickens and a colorful basket of eggs. So the roosters will start crowing, and one of the misconceptions of roosters is that they only crow during the morning. So as you can tell, it's around 6:30 or so, and the roosters are still crowing. As long as there's daylight, they will start to crow, and then even sometimes at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, as it starts to get lighter and lighter out during the day, they'll crow more frequently and crow even earlier. And with some of my roosters, you can see they have a bit different shaped comb. So that rooster that was just right up close, he has what's called a rose comb. So that means that really big red thing on his head, which you can see very well on this white rooster, it's pressed down and it's in more of a rose shape. Where these combs on this rooster is called a single comb. So it's one big single comb. And this breed has a particularly large one, where some have a bit smaller. And since our climate can be really harsh and it can get very cold, roosters with really big combs don't always do so well. Their combs will freeze. And that's actually what's happened to this rooster on the left. His comb used to look like the one on the right, but depending on their wintering capabilities, they won't always be able to keep their comb since they get a little bit colder, or if they were outside for longer than they should have been, that can happen. Whereas this rooster didn't have an issue at all with the colder weather, and that rooster did. It won't affect his breeding abilities. He'll just look a little bit funny, and the hens will most likely notice that. That's one of the breeding characteristics that hens will go by as far as choosing which rooster. So he'll be at a slight disadvantage to that rooster. So we have some more cats. So that's pretty much all we have for the chickens. Try and get everybody that's not supposed to be in the chicken house out. Lizzie, come on. Cats and dog. For anyone just tuning in, this is our livestock guardian dog, Lizzie. She's a Great Pyrenees. And just over a year old. She turned a year in February. And when we've been going out and checking on the cattle in the middle of the night to make sure there's nothing happening with the cows, or just to check on them or assist them, she's out in the middle of the field checking on her perimeter, making sure that no coyotes or foxes or anything out of the ordinary is around. And if they are, she'll make sure that they go far, far away. It's also an excellent at keeping the deer away. Up until we got her, we usually had quite a few deer that would roam around our yard. But since the addition of Lizzie, we haven't had, that I've noticed, a single deer anywhere around. So that is a great thing to have. Okay. This is our feed wagon. So all that hay in that big pile that I showed you earlier, this is what it gets loaded into, as well as the silage and the straw. And we found Hershey again. This is our bottle calf. And we fed him just at the beginning of the video. So he'll get put back in with the rest of the cattle. But because he does get a bit of a special treatment, he's able to roam around the yard, but never gets into trouble, never goes anywhere that he shouldn't. And when he's hungry, he'll come back to us. Back to one of the pens with the horse and the ram, and then one of the bulls. So they're all enjoying their hay together. This is my mare, and so I use her for moving the cattle in the summer. So with the horse, we'll also use a quad, an ATV, a truck, and then the horse. So this is the ram. So this is who our ewes have been bred to for our lambing season. This ram is a purebred Suffolk ram, and purebred Suffolks have the characteristics of that black head, and then the black legs, and white fleece or white wool. So they also enjoy a bit of barley. It's a good treat for everybody. So cattle have a almost 360 degree vision. And horses, because the way their eyes are positioned on their head, even more to the side than cattle, they're able to see a complete 360 degrees. So even if you're standing all the way behind the horse, right at their tail, they're able to see you, and from both sides. And if you look at the difference of a horse's eye, so very round, very similar to a human's eye, minus the pupil, but a very soft, very caring looking eye. And the same goes for cattle. So we'll take a look at Hershey's eyes. So very, very oval shape, no pupil, very consistent throughout. And then we'll look at the ram's eye. And you can see quite a bit different. A little bit yellow on the outer ring, and then that black center. So while they have very similar characteristics in terms of their hooves and the way they eat, they have a lot of differences. Even between the horse and the ram, the horse only has the one stomach, where the ram has the 4 compartments in his. She has hair, and he has wool. And horses also have, and she probably won't let me show, but horses have also top and bottom teeth, where cattle and sheep just have the lower, except for all the way at the back where they'll have their molars. Well, that's everything for today. Thanks so much for joining us on our virtual farm tour. I'm going to leave you with Hershey and then one of our cats. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on the next tour. Bye.